Welcome back to another edition of the Last Raiders. Joining me tonight, I have my brother Kyle. Kyle, you go ahead, take it from there.
What's going on, people? It's your boy Kyle Flowers, Rice High School class of 2003. Just happy to be here and just being able to share my story or share stories that I've had during my experience in them 7 floors on that corner, 124th and Lenox, man. So I appreciate you having me on.
Most definitely, I appreciate you taking the time out. Just to enlighten me a little bit about those 7 floors. I know the rich history of Rice High School. I was there for a long time, even as a child. With my, I always tell the stories about my big brother being at Rice. He was in the class of 2000. Um, but he's definitely a different cat. So for me at least, I was more sporty. He wasn't as much as I was, so the experience was different. But Harlem itself, from 2000 to 2003, was just a different type of place. So, what was it like? From I'm not sure what train you took to Rice, or if you was close enough to Rice that you could walk every day. But just what was your experience like getting to and from school every day?
Um, I was in the Bronx, so it didn't, I was in the South Bronx, so a lot of dudes came from Gun Hill area and all that. I was on Concourse, so I would take normally the one bus down to 149th from the concourse and jump on the two train for a couple stops. But it was a super routine. It was a couple people that we all went the same way, so we would either meet up in the morning, meet up at 149th, and just get there. So it wasn't a treacherous, trek to school. Everybody knew about that two train one way or another. Um, whether you were going downtown to Brooklyn, or Lower Manhattan, to Queens, or some people even taking the two train all the way to the crib. But um, everybody know about that infamous two train. So uh, yeah, that was it. But my journey to school wasn't crazy. It's weird though. Like coming from the Bronx, my first day of school, like my first 2 days of freshman year. For some reason, I took a longer way to school. Like I would take the two bus to 149th and Third Avenue instead of really realizing I could take the one bus straight to 149th and Concourse. But once I did that, like the second week of school, I was doing it for the remaining 4 years. So I mean, the journey to school wasn't too crazy. I mean, you've seen MTA is MTA, so you're gonna see all type of wildness on the train anyway. But um, yeah, there was adventures on the train, mostly after school, but going to school, people were just trying to get their breakfast, get to it.
I heard that. For me, I was uptown. I was up in Dykeman, so I just used to take the A train down to 125th. Some days, depending on how tired I was, if I was feeling lazy, I would take one of the buses down to Lenox from 8th Ave, or I would just walk. Honestly, like I said, it all just depends on the day, you know. But it wasn't too crazy. Same thing. You see whatever you see on the train. You see whatever you see while you're walking to school. But for the most part, you put your nose down. You just make sure you get there.
Absolutely.
Um, so you said you're from the Bronx. Obviously, there was other options of schools in the Bronx. You got St. Raymond's, you got O'Hallows, you got Cardinal Hayes. What made you pick Rice?
There was a few different factors that played into me going to Rice. So coming up during my junior high school days, my gym teacher, who was she was very, I don't want to say strict, but she was more no nonsense. And that was something my parents appreciated about her. Her son went to Rice, graduated from Rice. Um, One of my mom's closest friends in my apartment building, her nephew went to Rice. My dad knew Orlando Gober. Um, I was a basketball nut in terms of just loving the sport, not so much actually playing it. I mean, I could play it, but I was a sports fan in general, and just kind of knowing the landscape that was Rice basketball. So whether it was, Felipe Lopez and Kenny Satterfield, Andre Barrett, like seeing those dudes in the paper and all that, I was like, oh, okay, this school is cool. Now, what ultimately made me make that decision was I was just trying to get away from my mom's. Like my mom we lived literally 2 blocks from All Hallows, 7 blocks from Cardinal Hayes, and she was always telling me like, "Yo, you got to school at 2:30. You better be home by 3 o'clock." And I'm like, "Nah, I can't do that. Like that's just too close for her to pop up." So I was like, what's someplace good that I can go to that it's a reasonable distance away, but I'm not going all the way to Queens. You know what I mean? So um, yeah, that did it. Plus my grandmother lived in Harlem on 132nd, so it wasn't too foreign of an experience for me. My aunt lived on 127, so it was just a couple things in that area that just kind of was like, all the dots kind of connected for me to end up going there.
Okay. Yeah, that's what's up, man. And that seems like to be a common theme when it comes to anybody like kind of picking rice. Some type of family connection, whether it's immediate family or extended family, where people kind of get pointed in that direction. And I guess all of us still thinking about rice and still talking about rice to this day, 10, 11 years post disclosure, I guess it, and I'm trying to think of the right way to say it because it's not so much the staff with like the staff definitely played a factor in it, but I just think the overall essence of rice, like the energy, the uh the experience itself is kind of what keeps people coming back. And so could you tell me a little bit about what it was like for you in that time?
Oh man, there's so many ways to go. Um, I could start with the placement exam. Like I went in there, took the placement exam. The funniest thing about that experience is, we took the placement exam in the cafeteria. So, when you walk into the building, you make that left to the cafeteria. I'm sitting there waiting to take the test. And this tall dude walks into the building. He ducks under the doorway, and I'm like, "Oh man, like that dude must be like a senior or something." Like, I had no knowledge of really who he was. And I started talking to him. And I'm like, "Yo, you a senior?" He was like, "Nah, I'm a freshman." I'm like, "In college?" He was like, "Nah, I'm like here." I'm like, "With me?" He's like, "Yeah." So, shout out to my homie Cigar, man. He came in the door 7'2". You know what I mean?
Seven.
That's why I don't
Ooh.
look at yeah, I don't look at dudes as tall anymore, man. Like if you're not 7'3" or better, to me you're not tall. Like it's kinda it's so funny because, he was one of my coolest friends at Rice, you know what I mean? And, he played ball and, we would be in class. So if I'm like, if I'm sitting here writing on my desk, his kneecap is like right here. So it was kind of funny to see that. But then as you go through the journey, man, you meet so many people. Um, you gain new friendships and learn people's stories and you connect through different things, whether it's basketball. I know I played baseball all 4 years at Rice. So, I got my baseball friends and just the people from your hood that you kind of just, build those relationships and those bonds with. Then there's the faculty and the staff that were cool, whether it was OG or whether it was Mr. Abbasi, Ms. Brown, Ed running the elevator. Um, Everybody know Brother Sherlock, Mr. Flood, like, you know what I mean? So there was Mr. Crawford. There was so many, you know, pertinent figures in that building that wanted you to succeed. Um, you really didn't have much of a choice. Like you almost had to earn your way out of the building, whether it was good or bad. You know what I mean? So um, yeah, man, there was just so many people there that played, key roles into our growth and progress as Rice men. And the biggest, there was really none bigger than Orlando Gober for us. So, him being a former Black Panther and, coming up through that struggle in the 60s and whatnot. But, he was so instrumental in our growth and, just being good men. Period. Doesn't matter where you were. You were a representation of Rice High School. You were a representation of your family and yourself, and you always wanted to put your best foot forward. And he was going to make sure he did that by any means necessary.
Definitely, definitely. There's so many stories about Mr. Goldberg and any of you guys that I talk to, especially from that I want to say like 95 to mid 2000s. Anybody who graduated around there, I hear the stories about him. Everybody refers to him as OG, and much respect to him. Um, and I guess for us, at least in the later stages, I guess for us that would be Mr. Ash. You know, he was that figure for us, where he, while being a disciplinarian at the school, everything that he did was out of love. You know, and for a lot of us, you know, while I had my father in my life, Mr. Ash was almost like a second father or that uncle where, you know, your moms and your pops go, listen, if you step out of line, you could do whatever, you know, it's cool.
Yeah, yeah.
And there was
My
him.
pop, yeah, my pops knew Gold, and it was almost the same thing. So he was like, "Yo, you already know how you got to be. So if you derail from that, then you got to get what's coming to you." So I don't want to say it was a fearful thing, but you tried your best not to let OG down. Like, some people they wouldn't care about certain teachers and this that, but when it came down to OG, like even post his when his health started declining a little bit, and he had the amputation, things like that. He would roll down the hallway in his wheelchair and on his walker and all of that good stuff, and people would hear it and be like, "Yo, go, 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 go." What I mean? Shape up. So, like I said, it wasn't a fear thing, but you knew when it came down to gold, it was, he meant business. So that's one of the very few people you want to disappoint. I've seen people in tears as he remorselessly kicked them out. He was like, "Yo, you gotta go." People was like, "Nah, go, right? Nah, please, please." He was like, "No, no, don't beg now, because you wasn't doing that when you was, acting a fool." So that's one of the very few people you want to let down. Him, Ms. Brown, Brother Sherlock, like those are the staples of you know Rice faculty and staff that that really meant something to a lot of people.
Uh, Definitely, man. And I'm trying to think, man, because you telling your story now. You telling us a little bit deeper meaning of what it was for you at Rice. What was the hardest thing for you? You know, being at Rice 4 years, it's not always easy. Every day is not always going to be cake. You feel me? We've all had our struggles at some point in those 4 years on those 7 floors. So what was probably the most difficult time for you?
Um, that's a good question because I know it wasn't all rainbows and unicorns, but I, academically I was solid, so I didn't really have, if I had to pinpoint it, I would say my math classes were, although I was passing them, I wasn't flying through them like I was doing religion and English and history and all that. Like math was always a thing for me where I was like, I can just get over the hump, I'm good. I mean, if I get a 77, 78 in math, I felt that's a win. As for everything else, I'm like 83 or better, 85 or better, honor roll here, honor roll there. Um, so that was, being an athlete at Rice, you know, you don't get the grades, you can't play. You know what I mean? So, and people thought it was cool to play because there was some days you were leaving school early, depending on what your game was, and things like that. But I mean, I never really had an issue with was something being hard for me because I've always been a very social person, so I was cool with everybody. You know what I mean? Whether you played basketball, you was from the Bronx, you was from Harlem, whatever it was, I was cool with most people there. Um, I would probably say the toughest part. is trying to maintain eligibility to play at Rice. Because it's a balance. You know what I mean? You got to be able to, academically succeed and be good at that, and also, you know, be good athletically. I mean, were there some people on the team that were just holding up spots and getting the jersey? Yeah, of course. But you know, there were things you took pride in as an athlete, and in order to maintain that, your academics had to be on point. And not only that, but moms wasn't having that. Pops wasn't having that. They paying tuition, they not having that. So, um, yeah, just being able to, like I said, not disappoint those that care for you and help fund your education. That was probably the hard part because, you know, other than that, I didn't mind having a issue. I didn't have any issues with teachers. I didn't, I wasn't a regular in detention. I wasn't, in jeopardy of being kicked out like that. The going to school part was easy for me. I hated getting up early in the morning, but that's life. You know what I mean? So other than that, man, I didn't really have any hard parts aside from math class here and there.
Okay. That I mean, it, for me, the school part of it wasn't hard. I did my work. I think the hardest part for me was, I guess, keeping myself motivated. Freshman year, I was on a roll all 4 quarters. Sophomore year, I kind of took a dip because I coasted. I was like, I did honor roll all freshman year. I could kind of chill now. Junior year, I tried to bounce back a little bit. I made the honor roll a couple of times. I was like, this is the year that they look at your grades. And then
Right.
senior year, I'll push through just a little bit more just to make sure, I stood out a little bit to colleges. But as far as hard part, I guess it was the growing up aspect of it. I was one of those kids who came in thinking, oh, I could play ball, I'm good. And I got a reality check my freshman year. Um, went to tryouts and I thought I was doing great. I'm playing defense, I'm locking up, I'm getting dimes. The only thing I didn't do was score, but I wasn't shooting the ball. I was so focused on making everybody else look good, And Mr. Reed was like, I need guards who could shoot. So I take my first jump shot and I'll brick it bad. And I'm like, yeah, I'm getting cut. And I think that was like the hardest thing for me was getting that reality check my freshman year. You come in thinking you can bowl and you learn real quickly. Like everybody plays ball, but not everybody can ball. So, you had to learn that. And that was the reality check that I got at Rice. And I built off of that though. That helped me realize that you can always stand to be better. There's always room for improvement. Settling for mediocrity isn't something that you can do, especially coming from Rice. So whether it's in sports, in the classroom, or even in life as an adult now, I just don't settle for mediocrity. I don't allow anybody around me to settle for mediocrity, whether it's my kids, anybody in my family, my friends, you know, it's I'm always trying to help everybody be better. They used to use this quote with us a lot: "Iron sharpens iron." So I've just been trying to sharpen all the people around me, just because I want to see everybody be successful and everybody win. It gets lonely at the top by yourself. So why not bring people with you?
Yeah, I think to that point, like being an athlete, you kind of learn a lot of those concepts. The togetherness, the team faction. Like things like that. Like you know, teams work together to where you got to rely on somebody else. It's not just you by yourself. And I know coming in to play basketball. Everybody in that damn building play basketball, so you gotta persevere and push through to be one of the top 15 varsity players in the whole building out of what 400 people. And then if you look at you know you'll say let's call it 60 people total between freshman, JV, vars A, vars B. 15 people on the roster. That's 60 people You know what I mean? Or, 75 people where you got to be good. You got to be good to stand out and be that important. You know what I mean? I could play ball, but I knew the history of Rice basketball, and I knew that wasn't like, oh yeah, I'm about to go ahead. Nah, because I knew people were coming out since they were in their names in the newspaper since fourth, fifth, sixth grade, and I'm like, oh, that's not me. But I did know I could play baseball. I did know that. So when I went to go try out for the baseball team, that came natural to me. I mean, like, especially from a program who really wasn't winning like that.
Hmm.
My class came in, um, like 30 people tried out. Why? I don't know. Because you can tell there were people who tried out who had never picked up a bat a day in their life. You know what I mean? So, of the 9 of us that made the team, you know what I mean? To this day, we still feel like we were the best class to ever come through Rice High School baseball because we got there. We had made the playoffs for the first time in years. We had won a playoff game for the first time in years. You know what I mean? So as far as a level of total success, that 4 year span was great for us because we made it to the semis every year. Now we could never get over the hump that was Regis High School, but you know, just having that level of success coming from where Rice hadn't made the playoffs in 10, 15 years, and here they are back on the map for 4 straight years, whereas people who were consistent and good at baseball, that's probably one of the things that I take from Rice that I really hang my hat on. It's like having that staple of success for a school that's not known for baseball, obviously, but that's something I really look at, and I'm like, yo, we couldn't settle. We tried to be the best representation of Rice baseball that we could, and like you said, iron was sharpening iron. We were trying to get better every day. You know what I mean? So we did what we could, and it's like once we left, and that chart started to scatter for them. A couple good years, couple down years, couple years where they even didn't have a varsity team. They had to go JV, but then after that 4 year span that we were there, it was probably the most successful run that we've had during my time.
All right, all right. So now let's fast forward a little bit. We're getting into your senior year. What was your college process like? From picking the schools,
Oh, that was
visiting
easy.
the schools.
That was easy for me. So again, I'm a sports nut. Always have been since I was like my routine as a little kid was get up on a Saturday, bowl of cereal, an hour worth of cartoons, and then I'm watching college game day. I'm watching college football. I'm watching college basketball. My Sundays were, I'm a Yankee fan, so I was watching games all week. So, but I was always into college sports, right? So when it came time to go to college, I coupled that with my dad always taking us somewhere every summer or even sometimes during the school year. So, all up and down the East Coast, Puerto Rico, Dominican Republic, Mexico. Um, he used to always tell me, Kyle, the world is a lot bigger than New York City. And you should get out there and see it. So, as a sixth, seventh grader, even going into the eighth grade, or even going through high school, I knew when it came time to go to college, I wasn't going to school in New York. I refused to. Like, when you're in college and high school, they're telling you, yo, you can apply to, many schools you want, get a application fee waiver, you can, the whole 9 yards. And I was like, all right, cool. So I listed, I think about 9 schools that I want to go to, and only one of them was in the state of New York. And the only reason I picked that was because Mr. Widowitz, who's our guidance counselor, was like, hey, you got to have a safety school. So, just pick a SUNY school that you, and I'm like, I'm not going to school in New York. I got the grades good enough to go just about wherever I want. Is Ivy League ready? Probably not. But as far as schools that I'm looking at, I could probably get into the bulk of them schools. So he was like, yeah, but you still got to pick one. So I called my cousin Kevin. I'm like, yo, Kev, what schools you go to? Oh, SUNY Buffalo? All right, Mr. Widowitz, put SUNY Buffalo down. Like, I had no intention of going to SUNY Buffalo. I really only put it down because it was a safety school in case I needed something to fall back on. But the other school that I applied to, I applied to a gang of HBCUs, and then I applied to schools that I enjoyed watching sports of. So, I applied to Florida State. I applied to Miami. I applied to University of Michigan, which I'm a big fan of, huge fan. I applied to Temple, which that to me that was the safe school because it was close to home. Applied to Temple, applied to Hampton, Clark Atlanta, um, University of Florida. Um, and as it got closer to me choosing where to go, where to go to school, I was getting acceptance letters, and I got accepted to all of them, with the exception of University of Florida and University of Michigan, where I got waitlisted. And by the time Florida was like, "Hey, you got to come to summer school," and I'm like, "Summer school? No, I'm not going to summer school because I graduate May 29th. They want me in school June 7th." I'm like, "Nah, I want to enjoy my summer. My last summer with my friends because I know I'm not going to be here." And what I mean, I decided I was like, okay, where can I go to again? We want to get away from my parents. Like, where can I go that's close enough where my pops is not just going to drive to campus and show up, and my mom's not going to jump on a flight just to show up. So I'm like, okay, that's cool. Like, then I started to narrow it down to HBCUs. So I was like, okay, which HBCU do I want to go to that has another big school in the same city and has my major and other little things. And I'm like, oh shit, I should go to Florida A&M. Florida A&M to me was the number one HBCU in the country. Shares a city with Florida State. Um, it's in Florida, so when it comes time to spring break and all that, that's a hop, skip, and a jump. Whether it's Miami, Pensacola Beach, wherever it is, it's 4.5, 5 hours from Atlanta. So most of the people in my class, it seemed like a lot of them are going to Clark Atlanta. So I'm like, if I want to go chill with them, I could just hop up there real quick. But when it came time to go to college, I knew I was going away from school. I knew I wasn't going to be in the city. I knew, I was going to get away and have fun and not rely on mommy and daddy. Because I've always felt like going to school here, you don't really. I mean, you obviously you're in college, you're growing, you're going to grow, but you go away for school, it's a whole different experience. You really got to rely on yourself. You really got to do for yourself, and you kind of foster new relationships being out there and not being from, you know, whatever respective city you were in. So college was an easy pick for me, man. It was I knew I was going. I've always wanted to go to college. I've always wanted to be a college student. I was at the game having fun. Then you hear, your little college stories with, the girls and homecoming and whatever the case may be. But um, yeah, college was always a thing on my list, and my pops was always telling me, "Yo, you gotta go to college." A couple people in my family ahead of me went to college, so I already knew, what I wanted to do, and before I got out of there.
All right, all right. And I guess the last question I have for you, man, and once again, I do appreciate all the time that you've given me so far, and just telling your story. I guess the last question is now, so many years removed from Rice, so many years removed from college. Not so many years, I don't mean it like that, but just removed from there. What's one thing that you carry with you to this day? Obviously you're successful. You've come a long way from the days of walking those halls on 124th and Lennox. So what's one thing that you carry with you to this day and that you would like to just share with anybody watching this?
Um, Believe it or not, man, Rice is still alive. The Rice spirit is still going. Whether it be having this platform to talk to the alumni, network, and me having the Rice Raiders basketball Instagram page, and my guy Ozzy running the Rice Raiders alumni Instagram page. We still try to keep it going as if this school was still around. So our biggest goal is to get those doors reopened, and we're working feverishly day in and day out to trying to connect with fellow Rice alum, within our own community, trying to get those doors reopened, whether it's in Harlem or the South Bronx. But we want Rice to reopen, and we're doing whatever it is we can. It's a long journey, man. It's a marathon, definitely not a sprint. Um, to get that situation back on his feet, because of what it meant for a lot of young black men, men of color in the community in the city of New York. I don't want to just say Harlem because we came from damn near everywhere. So um, we want to restore that. We want to keep that going, build that back up, and that means a lot to a lot of people because like I said, we knew what it did for us, and we want to be. There's people. If you look back at it, right, when I graduated in '03, went off to college, I would come home for the summer. I can go back to Rice and see teachers and pop in, just like people when I was in high school. They would come back and pop in. Oh, this was my student. Oh, he played ball. Oh, he goes here. He goes there. We knew what that was. We had that feeling. And there's one class that does not have that feeling. So the main goal is to get the 2011 class to come back and say, hey, this is where I went to. You know what I mean? I was here as well. And then for a new generation of students to look up and say, oh, you guys are alum. Oh, you guys went here. What was it like for you? And, of course, with that 10-year gap or, however long it'll be once we try to reopen. But just to give that 2011 class, some young brothers to look after and to mold and guide, that's something we're really, really trying to push forward to happen. And so, there's a lot of things I take from Rice, but I'm really looking forward to the future of it and what we can make happen. Because that'll be something that's big for, even me personally. It's like, you know, I had a hand in, resurfacing and restructuring what Rice High School is, and to rise it from the ashes would be something amazing because it's like, that school meant so much for so many people in the community in Harlem and all across New York City, both academically and, athletically. So that's something I really hold on to that we're trying to work and push forward to.
I appreciate that, man. I know me and all my other brothers from that class would definitely appreciate that because, for me, I had somebody come in as a freshman who I treated like a little brother. So, you know, even it was just seeing him in class, and if he got in trouble, like, yo, chill out. Like, yo, you got to chill. Just being able to go back and check on him and see how he was doing. Obviously we didn't have that opportunity to do that, but I still look forward to the future to being able to do that, and I know that it's possible. My hope hasn't dwindled at all, and I know you guys are definitely on the job. The right men are in place for this, and I know it's going to happen sooner rather than later for sure.
Yeah, we're trying our best to get working, man. So, um, yeah, just looking forward to that and being able to go back and, build the basketball program back up and baseball for me personally. And, hopefully we'll get a football team this time around. And, just so many different things we get excited about. We have these conversations. We wanna really reach back into the essence of what Rice's great success was. We've even talked about who we would have in the building as a principal, as an athletic director, as coaches, as teachers, like people we want to see come back and just kind of keep the spirit of the essence and greatness of Rice High School alive.
Definitely, man. I don't think I have any more questions for you, bro. Like I said, man, you told your story. You talked about the plans for the future. So unless you have any departing words for the people, brother, I'm gonna let you go. Like I said, I appreciate all the time for sure. We're gonna keep doing this. I'm gonna keep doing this. I'm gonna reach out to as many alumni as possible. I'm gonna have alumni come back because there's always more things that people want to say. 4 years is a lot of time to compress in a 30, 40-minute video.
Absolutely, yeah, I agree with that, man. Like for me, it's fun, man. Like, cause I got when I run the Rice High School basketball page, it's always fun that people, when I post the littlest thing, people are liking it, and it's getting 60, 70, 80, 100 likes because people really know what Rice High School basketball was. You know what I mean? So whether we're celebrating Kemba Walker or, some of the former players who are now in coaching positions, i.e., like, Mo was at LIU and Shane Southwells and, assistant at Northern Illinois. And, Kiki is back at his alma mater in St. Peter's. There's so many people. And then we just recently had, Steve Bird. Steve Bird graduated the year before me. He just finished his playing career last year. You know what I mean? So it's 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 still out there, man. It's still out there. So many people that have so many things to say, and I want to keep at the very least the basketball element of it alive. So I try to get, for those who haven't checked it out, Rice Raiders basketball on Instagram. We got so many interviews with former Rice greats, coaches, players, managers. It's a lot, man. I'm talking about we got Felipe on there, Kenny Satterfield. We got who else we got? We got Reggie Freeman. We got Jerry McCullough. We got like it's a lot of history on that page, man. It's Andre Sweet, Kyle Cuff. And we're still working on getting some more names on there. That 2023, we're gonna kick back up with more of the live interviews, man. So if you haven't checked that out, please go check that out. Support the page. Um, we got more coming for 23, man. So I'm excited about that.
Definitely. So everybody, make sure you go plug in on Instagram, Rice High School. Give it to them one more time, bro. I don't want to mess it up. I'm sorry.
Rice Raiders basketball on IG.
So definitely, everybody go check that out. Rice Raiders basketball on IG. Follow me on YouTube if you haven't already. Shaq's Corner. Obviously, there's more coming soon. The Last Raiders, and then obviously, stay tuned for honoring Dean Ash, the little special that I'm doing, and I got some other things I'm cooking up just to honor a lot of the other faculty that we've lost from Rice, from the class of 2011 all the way on down, because there's a lot of people that need to be honored and given their flowers, whether they're here or not.
Absolutely.
Definitely. So, brother, like I said, I'm gonna let you go. I appreciate the time again, man.
Absolutely. That is having me on, man. I appreciate y'all.
Most definitely.
Uh,